Hello, and welcome to High Spirits with Edwin Courtenay, Episode 4, Gifts of the Heart. In this episode, I want to talk a little bit about clairsentience, but also a little bit about empathy. Both of these things are gifts of the heart, and because empathy is what we might call an emergent gift, I think it's important that we at least touch upon it today. I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment or two. Clairsentience, then, is a heart chakra based ability. Some people think of it as being feeling, which it is in part, but my understanding of it is that on a greater level, it is knowing. Now, some people call this claircognizance. I think clairsentience in its higher form and claircognizance are actually the same thing. I don't make a difference between these two, because for me, the feeling aspect of clairsentience is the beginning of the developing of that ability towards becoming knowing. Let me clarify a little bit about what I mean by this. The Ascended Masters, the spiritual hierarchy, believe that clairsentience is the highest of all the clairs. It's the spiritual ability that we should all be aiming to develop. I know that everybody raves about clairvoyance because everybody is invested in seeing spirit. They think it's going to be the thing that will absolutely convince them of the existence of the spiritual world. And I'm not knocking clairvoyance. I am clairvoyant. I love my clairvoyance. But at the same time, I am clairsentient too. And I acknowledge that clairsentience is in many ways a much more valuable gift. It's a much more immediate gift. And it's a much more reliable gift than clairvoyance or clairaudience is. Because with clairsentience, there is no need for interpretation. You're not interpreting a symbol, you're not interpreting a sound. You are simply receiving an understanding, a download of information that falls into your heart and is then translated into understanding in your head. The Tibetans, it is said, taught and probably still teach their students to ignore clairvoyance when it begins to develop in them as part of their natural spiritual and psychical advancement, because they say that the visions that we might see clairvoyantly are an illusion. We're swapping one illusion, the illusion of our physical reality, for another illusion, the illusion of the spiritual world. And this is absolutely true. Clairvoyance is another form of illusion. And therefore, the Tibetans would encourage their students to focus instead on clairsentience, on knowing, on being filled with understanding and truth. Now, this is a very, in the beginning at least, ambiguous and mercurial gift. Being filled with knowing in the beginning can feel like making stuff up. And the only major difference in the beginning is that the stuff that we make up, it doesn't seem to be generated by our brain. It's not like we are sitting there trying to come up with an idea for a story or a theme for a poem or a design for a painting. The knowledge, it just lands, it just appears, it just kind of blossoms in our consciousness, fully formed. And before we know it, it's coming out of our mouth, or it's being written onto the page, or painted onto the canvas, or composed on the piano. And it arrives as this package of information. But because we're not seeing a vision, because we're not hearing a sound, it can feel like in the beginning, imagination, like we're making it up. So it's a very difficult gift to run with immediately. And many people, I think, have clairsentient moments and don't recognize them for what they are. They just think they've made something up, they're imagining something, they've been inspired with a story or an idea. And it's only in time, when that imagination is proved to be true or real, that people then begin to think, well, hold on a minute, what that person is now confirming as a truth is something that I made up in my head when I was walking the dog or mowing the lawn or doing the dusting or meditating. And then they begin to see that actually that imagination is clairsentience. But because it is mercurial in this way, often the first flushes of the manifestation of clairsentience is feeling. And that feeling is often within our bodies. This is something which in the world of the healer used to be called, at least back in my day, body listening, where we would scan a room or an object or a person, and we would listen to our bodies as the barometer to provide us with impressions about said object, room, or person. So we might tune in, we might get a pain in our lower back, and we would then relay that to the person, object, or place. We might feel hot, we might feel dizzy, we might feel nauseous, we might get sensations of tingling or heat or cold or pain or discomfort or elation or joy. And we would interpret them as being impressions that we're picking up about the person, place, or object, not things that are happening to our body, but our body is being used as the canvas or the page upon which these impressions are being presented. And in the beginning, when we use our body in this way, in this clairsentient way to sense and feel, and some people use their auras as well, if you're sensitive to your aura, you might have to apply a degree of interpretation, because sometimes it's not always immediate or obvious. You know, if you suddenly get a strong impression of spring, and you're in the middle of winter, then it obviously doesn't relate to spring. It might relate to a period of time, or it might relate to a moment in a person's life, or it might relate to a state of mind. Spring represents beginnings and birth, for instance. So in the beginning, when clairsentience is sensing through the body and the aura, initially we might need to apply a dose of interpretation in order to make sense of what we're feeling. But the more we work with that sensing, the more people tend to find that they will get the sensation in their body, and at the same time it will be accompanied by a knowing of what that sensation relates to or means. And this is where the claircognizant, if you will, aspect of clairsentience kicks in. And then it is just a process of continuing to work with that to such a point where the body sensing fades away and the knowing is what you receive. I don't think I've encountered many readers who entirely utilize clairsentience. Some might use it in conjunction with a divinatory aid like the tarot or the runes, etc. But I think most readers tend to have an initial gift of clairvoyance or clairaudience, and clairsentience then kind of comes inside those other abilities. Which is not to say that clairsentience in some people is the only clair that develops outside of clairvoyance and clairaudience, because in some people it absolutely does. Now, because eventually clairsentience does not require interpretation, it is the most reliable, and incredible information can be brought forward by clairsentience. Fully fledged, fully formed downloads of information that are popped into the clairsentience heart and mind by spirit, by their own spirit guides, by the higher self of the client or themselves, by the divine, etc., etc., etc. So, as it is the most reliable of all the clairs, spirit and the Tibetans encourage us to focus on developing it, because then we are not going through other layers of illusion. We are keying in directly and dynamically right to the core point. Now, I'm going to come back to clairsentience in just a moment, but I want to just take a very, very brief detour into the realms of empathy, which is another heart-centered gift. And we refer to this as an emergent gift or an emergent talent because it seems to be one of the psychical gifts which is on the wax at the moment throughout the world. More and more people are developing psychical empathy. We have to make a definition between psychical empathy and psychological empathy. Those are two very different things. Psychic empathy is the ability to pick up on the emotional energy of other people and often to interpret that energy as emotions that the empath will feel inside themselves. So it's nothing to do with moving into psychological sympathetic states. It's nothing to do with emotional intelligence. Psychic empaths can pick up on emotions of people without talking to them, without seeing them. They might sit next to them on the bus. They might pick up an object that belongs to them. They might just hear the name of the person, and they will feel the emotions that that person is holding at that moment in time. And also, empaths, certain empaths, developed empaths, can utilize their ability to feel forwards and backwards in time as well, to know what somebody was feeling in the past, or even sometimes to get a glimpse of what someone might feel in the future. When empathy first develops in most people, it's tricky because often the empath will feel as if those emotions are theirs. They might wake up in the morning feeling fine. They might get on the bus to work, sit next to somebody who is silently depressive, and get off the bus feeling depressed. And because it's not normal at the moment, at least, to think, oh, I obviously picked that up from the person on the bus next to me, there is a greater tendency to think, well, those emotions are mine. And if those emotions come out of nowhere, which they often do, after a while, that person might begin to think, I've got psychological issues, I've got mental health issues because I'm experiencing spates of depression for no obvious reason. But it's not mental illness related in any way, shape, or form. It's nothing to do with brain chemicals. It's nothing to do with neurodivergence. It's to do with psychical empathy. So we have to be really cautious ourselves at spotting that, and also spotting that in other people, so that we can help them see that what they're experiencing is this emergent talent. And there are lots of books now, well, there are a few more books than ever there used to be, being written and easily available on empathy. And there are more courses and workshops, and I'm sure lots more YouTube videos about empathy too. Empaths need to protect themselves. They need to learn how to clear their emotional body frequently in order to prevent themselves becoming overwhelmed or fundamentally influenced by the negative emotional energy of other people. And they need to then lean into that talent so that they can use it to tell whether somebody is truthful or not, to tell whether somebody is genuine, to tell whether somebody fancies them or not. I mean, it can be an incredibly useful gift, and it can be incredibly useful in counseling and healing. Now, I might come back to empathy in future YouTube chats because it is worth exploring more. But I just wanted to touch on it here because, you know, it is a gift of the heart, and it also can be connected sometimes with clairsentience too. Now, I want to do a little exercise in developing clairsentience. In my previous YouTube videos, I've talked about the importance of having a good clear space to work in, psychic protection. I've talked about the importance of not being disturbed when you do these kind of exercises. So if you haven't looked at any of those previous YouTube videos, do go back and look at them now, because those things are very important. And today we are going to take them as read, that you kind of know all of that information. So you're not going to be disturbed. You're in a clear space. Your energy is clear. You're nice and psychically protected, and you're ready to go. But I can't underline enough how important those things are. So if you don't know about those things, just do loop back to some of the earlier YouTube videos and pick up on that information. I'm going to pop a little bit of music on in the background. Here we go. But I just need to make sure that I'm not going to deafen you or me. There we go. That should do it. So just take a few breaths. Make sure that you are as comfortable as you can be. We're just going to do a very, very quick exercise so that you can go and practice it a bit more on your own. No tension in the shoulders or neck or hands or feet. Nice lower back support. Take a few deep breaths in and out and relax, and you can close your eyes. We're not going to begin with the heart, but rather with the aura. We're going to expand this field of light and energy around the body out into the space around us to help us pick up on the energy and information that is being beamed to us by our guides, by our guardian angel, or that we're picking up from the space in which we are in. Of course, we will have already protected ourselves, so even though we're expanding the aura, it is shielded and filtering out any negative energy so that we're only picking up on information and vibration that's not going to do us any harm. So as you breathe in and out, imagine your aura expanding out into the space around you, this field of luminous light and energy, this bubble around your body, bleeding out, breathing out into the space around you on all sides. Now bring your attention to the heart center, the green chakra. And as you breathe in and out, imagine this chakra expanding, dilating, opening. Green, the color of grass, the color of leaves, expanding like a flower, opening like a star, like a brilliant orb of light, radiating out from the center of your chest, where the heart center resides. Imagine it like a satellite dish. The wider it opens, the more it's capable of picking up on those signals, on those frequencies and vibrations being beamed to you by your guides, or which you are trying to become sensitive to in your environment. Open it to maybe the size of a dinner plate and leave it at that size, radiating its light out into the space around you. Now, first I want you to listen to your body. Any sensations there that weren't there at the start of this little exercise? Any aches or pains? Any tingles? Any heat or cold? Any sensations at all that you can feel? Try and make a mental note of them so that you can write them down later and try and interpret as to what they might mean. Now open your mind and your heart. Try and keep a blank, open space so that any knowledge, any truth, any wisdom, any guidance can enter into you now. If this comes as a vision, as a sound, don't ignore it. Make a note of that too. But what we're looking for here is an understanding, a transmission, a truth, an inspiration, a story, blossoming and blooming in your head and or heart. It might initially be something quite small, a simple piece of instruction. Get more sunshine, eat more vegetables, try to relax more before you go to bed. It might be something complicated, vast, metaphysical, astonishing. It might be for you, it might be for someone else. It might be something in regards to the space in which you were sitting. Just be open to anything and everything that enters now into your heart and mind. Now I want you to take a few more deep breaths. Bring the heart chakra back to its normal default setting. Draw its energy in so that it's the shape and size that it was at the beginning of our exercise. And also slowly draw in the aura back to its normal default setting around the body. We ask our guides, the masters, to transmute and clear any and all inappropriate energy that we may have encountered in this little exercise, to cast it into the violet flame, to transmute it back to light, and to help us in restoring ourselves back to a state of harmony and balance, where we are grounded and centered in our body, safely back into our space, into our room. Let go of the image of the heart center of your aura. Take a few deep breaths. Breathe down through your legs and feet into the earth, imagining yourself extending deep and wide roots of light to earth and ground yourself back into the here and now. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So now I would encourage you to write down anything that you felt in your body, anything that popped into your head, into your heart, anything that you saw, anything that you heard as well, but also just anything that just came to you, that just popped into your head, that blossomed inside your heart. Now, as with all of these things, practice makes perfect. This is just one exercise of many. I'm sure you'll find many more on the internet, but practice makes perfect. You can learn the practice. It's not difficult. You can do it on your own, or you can come back to the video and do it with me. We did it very, very quickly. I would really encourage you to take much more time opening the heart, expanding the aura, sitting in the silent space, connecting, and then much more time to bring yourself back and ground and center yourself, really. But practice makes perfect, and in time you should find, if you are clairsentiently inclined, that more and more impressions will be unfolding inside you. And with a little practice, you can do that with somebody else, tuning into them or tuning into an object that belongs to them, or a picture, or even a name written down on a piece of paper, or a signature, and seeing what you can get that way too. Next episode, we're going to be dealing with the solar plexus and sacral centers, and we're going to be looking at psychical ability as opposed to mediumistic talents. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have enjoyed it, and if you haven't already clicked and subscribed, please do so. And also, please do let other people know that my YouTube channel is here if you think it might be of any use to them. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Stay safe and well, and bright, blessed be.